In today's video, we're going to share the most unlikely story in gaming. When we talk about Nintendo, we often jump straight to Mario, Zelda and Pokemon. But Nintendo isn't just a games company. It's a company that has survived for over 130 years by repeatedly refusing to play by the rules of its industry. This is a story about reinvention, about why Nintendo keeps walking away from what everyone else thinks a console should be, and about one moment, the launch of the Wii, when Nintendo stopped competing on power altogether and changed gaming forever. Nintendo was founded in 1889 in Kyoto, Japan, long before electricity, computers or screens. Its original business? Hanafudo playing cards. For decades, Nintendo was a traditional entertainment company. Physical games, social play, family rituals. Even at this early stage, there's a pattern. Nintendo wasn't about technology, it was always about play. Throughout the mid-20th century, Nintendo experimented wildly. This included taxi companies, love hotels, instant rice. Most of these failed, but what stuck was a core insight. Nintendo wasn't trying to be modern, it was trying to be joyful. I hope you're enjoying this week's founder story. If you are and want to support us, do consider subscribing and hitting that like button. It really helps us out. Now back to the video. In the 1970s, Nintendo made its first serious move into the electronic entertainment scene. First with toys, then arcade machines, and then the moment that matters, home consoles. In 1983, Nintendo released the Famicom in Japan, and in the West we know that as the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES. This was really risky. The game industry had just collapsed in North America. Retailers didn't trust games anymore, and consumers had been burnt. Nintendo's response? They didn't sell a console, they sold a toy, robots, zapper guns, and their toy was all them, built with strict quality control to regain the market's trust. And crucially, games designed around feel, not specs. Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, and the list goes on. Nintendo wasn't winning on hardware, it was winning on experience. The 1990s introduced competition, serious competition. Sega, then Sony, then Microsoft. This was the era of bits, processing power, CD-ROMs, and 3D graphics. But Nintendo made bold and sometimes baffling decisions. Cartridges over CDs, family-friendly branding, gameplay-first philosophy. The Nintendo 64 gave us revolutionary 3D movement. The GameCube delivered tight, joyful design. But commercially, Nintendo was losing ground. Sony's PlayStation was becoming culture. Microsoft was bringing raw power. Nintendo was starting to look old-fashioned. And by the early 2000s, many people assumed Nintendo would eventually be pushed out of the console sector, the moment everything changes. There was a turning point. After the GameCube, Nintendo faced a brutal reality. They couldn't win on power alone. They couldn't outspend Microsoft. And they couldn't outspec Sony. And chasing them meant becoming something Nintendo had never been. So Nintendo asked a different question. What if we stopped competing on power altogether? Instead of asking, how do we make a better console? They asked, who isn't playing games and why? The answer wasn't technology, it was intimidation. Controllers with too many buttons, games that assumed literacy in gaming, a culture that had been exclusionary. Nintendo's response was radical, a console that didn't look like tech, that didn't sound like tech, that didn't behave like tech. The Wii, a white, quiet object, a controller that mimicked real-world movement, a console designed for living rooms, not bedrooms. This wasn't about gamers, this was about people, grandparents, parents, non-players. Nintendo reframed gaming as social, physical, and shared. And the industry laughed. Until it worked. The Wii didn't just sell well, it expanded the market. Tennis in care homes, bowling in retirement centres, families playing together. Nintendo wasn't competing with consoles anymore. It was competing with board games, TV, doing nothing. This is the crucial insight. Nintendo didn't innovate technologically, it innovated culturally. It understood that the future of games wasn't realism, it was access. And for a moment, Nintendo became the biggest gaming company in the world by walking away from what everyone else thought gaming should be. Not everything that followed was successful. The Wii U struggled. confusing branding, and an unclear proposition. But the philosophy remained, and with the Nintendo Switch, everything snapped back into focus. Hybrid, play anywhere, one clear idea. Once again, Nintendo didn't chase power, it chased how people actually live. Nintendo's secret isn't nostalgia, it's restraint. They don't ask, what can this technology do? They ask, what does play mean now? The Wii wasn't a gimmick, it was a declaration that games don't need to be louder or sharper or more complex. Sometimes they just need to invite more people in. And that might be the Nintendo's most radical move of all. And this is where Nintendo's story stops being about games. Because the Wii leaves us with a set of uncomfortable but powerful questions for brands. Questions that go beyond features, channels, and growth hacks. Questions like, who isn't engaging with us right now and why? Are we designing for the most vocal users or the widest possible audience? What assumptions does our industry take for granted that were never questioned? Where are we competing on scale, power, or sophistication simply because everyone else is? What would it look like to stop chasing the market and instead expand it? Nintendo didn't win by being the best console. It won by redefining what a console was for. So maybe the real branding lesson isn't about differentiation. It's about courage, the courage to simplify, the courage to misunderstand, the courage to design for humans, not hierarchies. But sometimes the most radical brand move isn't doing more, it's choosing to play a different game entirely. Thanks for watching, do let us know what you think in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video.